Do you want to get Bertha?
Sure.
Is that...
Does Bertha... I don't think Bertha's not going to fit on the table.
I don't know, but I saw Bertha's... I mean, no.
But she could,
no pressure to Bertha.
She could lie. I guess she could lie on the table.
Right?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
This is like a fraction of Bertha.
This is just a little tiny... It's just her foot. It's just her foot. But I love the sound. Yeah, this one's even closed. I'm just beginning the journey of discovering all the things that this tube of metal with a bunch of keys that are basically, I mean, especially when you get to the larger flutes, like this is its own percussion section. 2015, I got Bertha. She arrived in a big box that looked like a coffin to the ice house, and Nathan Davis, the percussionist in Ice, he helped me carry this thing up the stairs. And he was also just like, well, we have to unpack it. And I realized that I didn't know how to put the thing together. So we went on YouTube to try to figure out how, because it's not intuitive. It's not intuitive. And it's not, I mean, it doesn't have that much to do with playing the flute. The fingerings are the same, but everything is, the spacing, of course, is totally different. And the instrument is played vertically. So we finally got it put together. And it was so fortuitous that he was there with me because he ended up actually writing the first piece for it. It was fantastic that my first exploration with the instrument was with a composer and a percussionist as my playmate. And then when Tyshawn got his hands on it, of course, he was like, this is a drum set. Like, we can make a drum set duo. And the aerophone qualities of his drum set playing. I mean, the incredibly lyrical and really just gravity defying, object defying things that he's able to do to make a drum head, an aerophone, like a wind instrument, to make it sing, to become something completely other than our instruments. Well, then I guess to make a visual arts reference, like I love to think about the punctum, the Roland Barthes, like the punctum in the sound, the punctum in a phrase, the thing that is just, it's not what you're looking for, but it's there. And of course you can miss it. You can also, you can miss it as an artist. You can suppress it by not paying attention to it or by hiding it. But when you celebrate it, both in your listening and in your music making, it's such a better way to live. And as classical musicians, we're just that part of our imagination, which is it actually is irrepressible, but the training does a fantastic job of repressing it. Really, like the most complete.
It's actually completely unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then we're taught to follow instructions. It's corrective.
Yeah.
It's managing something. It's corrective. And then you get to a point where you actually realize that you have a certain amount of freedom, and sometimes you don't know what to do.
Totally. And what's so lovely about the punctum idea within that is that you can't make the same, or you can't find the same punctum,
Right.
Like you get to just invite that every time you make a sound and every time you sculpt a phrase.
What are these little guys?
Okay, so this is a little... Yeah, this is one of my favorite things ever. So this was also a gift from my friend Julie Beauvais, this way. So Julie is one of my dearest friends and one of the most important artists in my life also. And she made that house, string and cardboard. It was like a little chimney. And so I had written her a letter. It was many, many years ago. I was in between moves of domiciles and also just more abstractly. The idea of home was really a moving target. And I had written her this letter that was centered around that beautiful thing that John Cage said late in his life, that we carry our homes within us, which enables us to fly. And And so she had made this object for herself, I think before she got her tiny house. It had been with her for 10 years. And then she just put it in a box, and it flew from Switzerland to Brooklyn. And she said, this has served me well for 10 years, and now it's time for it to be in your house, however that is. It's also just one of my most beloved objects.
I love how it's wrapped too.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's like it's
holding
so,
it together.
yeah, and it's, it's on a mountain, so it's like, I see it on a mountain because it's tilted, and it's got this like, mini duct tape, like
there.
mini
Yeah.
thatched roof there. But the string it's both a thing that enables it to fly, and it's also like, I look at it and I'm like, it's an enormous hug. It's like the kind of hug that you want that's tight, but it's also translucent somehow.
And the wheelbarrow?
So the wheelbarrow, I mean, again, here comes my 10-year-old, my inner 10-year-old. I just have a thing for red wheelbarrows. I just love them. I've always loved them. I used to ride around in one as a kid. I have an antique one in my apartment, and I like to wheel it around. And it's a place where I'll put things that also need to move. So like if I put them in the wheelbarrow, it means that they're living there temporarily, that they need to go find another home. And it's my favorite object in my house, but it was quite large. It didn't fit on a table. So I decided to bring the miniature version of it, which was given to me by another artist friend, Catalina Ausin. And she was with me when I found my childhood red wheelbarrow replacement in an antique store in Williamsburg.
Really?
Yes. And so she got me this little keychain wheelbarrow to just remind me that same joy could just travel with me in my pocket.
This other piece is just another.
Oh, this is just another one from the same. Yeah, I just brought a head, because isn't that so cool to see? Like, yeah, that's what happens when you take the lip plate off of the flute, and it's just so vulnerable looking. It's a little grotesque. But it's gorgeous. And that's what's underneath this very beautiful, fancy thing that we produce sound with. And yeah, I keep these on I have a little practice, it's like a little table. And I like having these pieces of flutes there. I just find them inspiring to look at.
Sometimes we idealize our instruments and sort of tend to them with such care, which is important. But then to see, like, you look at this and you think, oh, this instrument is dead. Or it has like this mortality to it. But then this is sort of celebrating it in all of its forms.
I mean, we think of these as these fixed objects that we just have to care for, right? But, the metal changes every time you put your air and your spit through it. It changes. It is a body, This is why instruments need to be played, I had this conversation recently with a fellow who, I play this platinum Powell that was played by Dorio Anthony Dwyer, first woman to have a principal flute job in a symphony orchestra, and he said, when you're done, when your career is over, you really should donate that to the Smithsonian or something. And I was just like, first of all, no, there's a plan already.
Yeah.
Foundation owns it, and we're going to make sure that it ends up in the hands of another young flutist who's going to be blazing trails in Dorio's, in her honor. And the instrument is a tank. I mean, it's no delicate thing. Yes, it's made of platinum, but it needs to be played. It breaks my heart when I see instruments behind glass to try to own something, to try to freeze frame it, own it, is so, I mean, that is human nature, right?
Yeah.
But I really believe that our truer nature and our responsibility, like quite literally our ability to respond to that, is to do the opposite. And that's, I mean, going back to Barth's, like, that's what's so interesting to me about the punctum, because it's like, it's this thing that, yeah, it's in a picture frame. A photo is like the ultimate in, here's this thing that's frozen. But no, it's not. Because, like, this one little weird thing that is accidental, maybe, but also part of the divine moving into that photographer in that moment, that's the thing that makes it move. And that's the thing that makes it alive.
It makes me think about this. I mean, I'm not getting it quite right, but this Gertrude Stein quote from right before she died, which was like, "How great that I can die and make room for so many more after
Yeah.
me." You know,
Yeah.
sort of this, and how great that so many have died before me to make room for me.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Bertha was given her name by Pauline Oliveros and her partner Ione. So I had asked Pauline to write a piece for Bertha and for the Density 2015 cycle, and Pauline said, "Well, bring this instrument," which was called Brunhilde at the time. Actually, her name from her first owner, Patty Monson, wonderful flutist who lives out on the West Coast now, was Dora. She said she goes by the name of Dora, and I was like, okay, but maybe she can have a second name. She just seemed like a Brunhilde to me,
Right.
and so I brought her to Pauline and Ione's living room, and Pauline looked at it and said, not Brunhilde. And it was Ione who said, nope, that's Bertha. That's Big Bertha.
I can't even imagine what it was like in Pauline's presence.
Oh, well, fortunately, even though she's no longer in this world, she's so present. She's so with me all the time. And with all of the musicians whose lives she touched. This past weekend, there was an event called Still Listening up in Kingston. And it was so tremendously beautiful to see all of these people, mostly local artists from that area, from Kingston, New Paltz, each tell their stories of how she changed their lives. Every kind of person, every age, every style, aesthetic, musical background, combination of musical backgrounds. I mean, there was just, I don't know of another musician who made such a welcoming and generous home of the practice of music making than Pauline did. She did it as a teacher and as an instigator, creator of environments for other people to discover themselves. But that's what she practiced too. That's how she made music. That's how she went through the world. And I played at the end of it. I played Phyllis Chen's piece for flute and heartbeat. The live heartbeat. It's always a disaster in the sound check. It's always a disaster, and we're always like, "Is it going to work?" And this time around, I was like, you know what? Pauline's going to be in the room, and so if it doesn't work, whatever. Pauline loved technological disasters. When the thing is not working in performance, she just would be so interested. She'd be like, "Well, here we go, detour." Material for improvisation, right. and a reason to be jolted back into presence as performers. And so I was just not worried about it at all. And sure enough, the heartbeat worked more perfectly than it has ever worked in performance. And then Ione at the end of the event she led the entire, this was at Kingston City Hall. She led everybody there, put them in a huge circle around City Hall and led them in the heart chant. People put one hand on their hearts, their right hand, and their left hand on their neighbor's, the back of their heart. And just take a deep breath in and a deep breath out, and just a tone comes out, any tone, and it can change. And you get this group of 300 people singing and holding their hearts, and in many cases a stranger's heart. And it's just gorgeous.